technology
It's
is
so cold outside.
advancing.
Like, dress really warm in here. Might have to take the jacket off after a bit. But we've done it so long, it's just pretty much broke
Yeah,
now.
he just,
Yeah.
I remember all the problem we had with him trying to clean this creek out. This tree and the
Then
other
his
property.
driveway, we bought him a
They
free
used to
driveway.
be the speaker before it, and I finally said, somebody else can do that. I want to ride in the parade because I hadn't ridden in the parade
I don't know what he does for a living.
last
His
year. I
truck
guess
is
it's the
old.
first year I actually rode in.
He's supposed to be.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I don't know. He's the only employee, there's nothing.
Did you know Doug Tysted's retiring from the CGOC Foundation?
In December, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I guess he had made that some public at some point, but I hadn't heard.
I knew he'd been contemplating it, and then,
City did a lot of things.
that last week, but two Wednesdays ago, I asked
Well,
him.
that kind of makes sense because some places they
Is that
do.
a
Yeah.
desirable job? I know it's a
You know, if we have
important job, I just
hire
didn't know.
somebody to do the festival, the parade could be part
You know,
of
they
that
have
too.
their choice of a lot of good
But
candidates.
even
I
then,
asked him
I
if
mean,
he was grooming anybody or whether he had a succession plan. He said no, and I'm not sure of that. I think that's what he made told. That's what he told me, but but that doesn't make sense to me. So,
Yeah.
no, he's done a great job.
so we didn't
Yeah,
have.
they do a lot of good work.
Sorry, Greg.
How are you doing, Kara? Good. How are your sons doing? One's way under, right? Or
No, no, I think we got about
Okay.
45 right now, and we usually have that at Fairview. There's a bunch of them that don't even tell us. I was remembering and I was calling them, oh, yeah, the parade. We get them.
is he there on temporary duty or permanent?
I hope so, yeah. Last few years we've been really lucky.
Underwater, undersea water warfare.
No,
I don't know what that means really.
he's a lieutenant, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
I got a lot of time.
And the other one is surface warfare or aviation?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it,
Yeah, but I got 2 or 3 of my favorites. Yeah.
He's been there for a while, right? Yeah.
yes, and he'll be there for a
Yeah, I
while.
know. Like, it takes a long time for that training.
It's, study for 5 days. Fly 1 hour.
the March 6th study session. I ask that you either turn off your cell phone or silence them. And we are recorded, we're live on TV, and obviously we're televised daily from at 7 in the evening and at midnight if you want to see a replay. So, starting off, we have a quarterly report from Leavenworth School District. I think Dr. Roth is here from USD 453.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you all?
Good.
Good, good. We got some informational things to hand out first. The school board approved our calendar for next year, so I'll pass that around. One of the things that we have done is we filled out the paperwork for parade for the next school year, our homecoming parade for next September. And here's the route. It did not change from this past year. And I've talked to Mr. Kramer about this to let him know that the paperwork had been, or the application has been filled out, and that I would be sharing the parade route with the commission this evening. So that part has been done. One of the exciting things that we had this past weekend, and it's an up-and-coming activity, an up-and-coming sport per se, is powerlifting. And we had, so I've got just a little bit of a, so I don't miss anybody, prepared statement. On Saturday morning, 28 of Leavenworth High School's strongest male and female student athletes participated in the 5A State Powerlifting Championships in Bonner Springs. 415 competitors worked through rotations grouped by weight class, bench press, back squat, and power clean. We had 3 pioneers that took first place overall: Chris Todd, Abby Wall, and Cody Harrell. Wall, who tied the state meet records in the bench at 160 pounds and the clean of 190. And Cody was named men's and women's lifter of the meet for their division. We had 5 other students that finished in their class. We had Grace Gettings second, Tanner Britton third, Brianna Walker fourth, Caitlin Blackburn fourth, James Graham fourth, Sean Hamill fifth, and Matt Whitesides fifth. And as a team, our guys finished fifth, and our women finished seventh in the state. So we're proud of those individuals. And not every, if you read the local paper this last weekend, they did a nice job, or yesterday's edition, I believe, had a nice article on that accomplishment by our kids. One other thing that is pretty exciting, and it will be on, hopefully the commission meeting will be over by 10 o'clock tonight. If so, tune in to Channel 41, NBC. We had our students, our theater students, they applied for a grant and was awarded a $10,000 grant. And so they did a story on that this evening, and it will be aired on the 10 o'clock news. And so we're excited about that. They basically won the grant through a service project that they did, and they are going to use the funds to refinish and redo part of the stage floor. So it's all staying with the theater department. And so they get recognized for outstanding job well done there. Then the couple things to brief the commission on is that the bond, the board is having a work session tomorrow at 5 o'clock p.m. Within that, they will kind of discuss some final details, hopefully come to a consensus of some type of plan to think about until next Wednesday, where the hope is that they will make some type of vote next Wednesday, either to move forward with a bond or to create a Plan B to help with the needs of the district where we see some congestion at the middle school and at Henry Leavenworth Elementary. Plus, we want to do some safety things throughout the district with that. And so we have a work session tomorrow with DLR, and then it will be on the agenda next Wednesday for the board, hopefully, to take action at that time, one way or the other. There was one other thing.
Security, did you hire some security?
We did hire some security officers at the middle school. The board, we have two security officers there, and we had we've made a half-time at the high school into a full-time, so we added another half-time back to the high school. And so I shouldn't say there's never a feeling of ease in today's climate, but we feel good about the individuals that we hired. They were retired police officers and well-respected, and they've come in and done a nice job with relationships and things like that. And so, as always, it's about the partnerships and working together and doing the things to try to keep our kids safe as much as possible. We've added cameras. We've added, our emergency management team has met. They're talking about different devices that could be placed throughout the district in the district buildings to help with notifications and identification and things like that. So it's something that every district across the state and across the nation takes very seriously, and always look for ways to try to enhance the security that we have. Other than that, I'm open to questions.
Or what's the school board considering right now? Is it, what was reported, a while back was the one, is it more than one option or more than one
So
alternative?
right now, we are, to be honest, we're kind of in a quandary on what to do. Right now, originally, we've identified about $43 million of needs, and I was updated today by the state. There's only $36,700,000 and some change left. So the board would have tomorrow to discuss whether or not, if they want to move forward with a bond, the entire $43 million is not available. So if we just say pat on the $43 million, they would have to wait until next fall to go forward with that bond. Or we could maybe change the scope of what we're doing and try to go before the voters in June for what's left from the state. And so that's going to be probably a main topic of discussion tomorrow night. But right now there was two options that the board's considering. One would be a renovated building somewhere in the community, if we could find one, to be a pre-KK center. And then a brand new addition at Warren Middle School that would house 5th and 6th graders, which then would open up some classrooms in all of our buildings throughout the district for some collaborative spaces and some next generation learning opportunities with technology and innovative ideas that teachers may have. So they'd be collaborative type areas. If we shave off the likelihood of being able to do both of those, probably wouldn't work in the budget. So we would probably, we have to do something at Warren. And if we do something at Warren, it helps the other buildings throughout the district. So what that would look like, our architects are kind of working feverishly to try to get some of this ready and give some additional options to the board tomorrow with the dollars that are available.
One other question, is the closing of Lawson still on the table?
Depending upon what direction. If we don't do a pre-KK center, then no. If we do a pre-KK center, that would be an option, but it's not closing Lawson. It would be closing Nettie Hartnett, because we have several programs over there. Those programs would move up to Lawson. The building is more efficient. It would be better for that than the efficiency that Nettie Hartnett offers the district.
But the kids who are in that geographical district
Would go probably between
elsewhere.
Anthony
Yeah,
and.
And I'm just a member of the city commission, but I like the idea of neighborhood schools. I think that's what you have now, and I'm just a very strong proponent of that, particularly with the partnerships that I think is part of your vision. In terms of the partnership, the first partnership is with the, you know, the parents and the guardians of children, so.
And through the process, that was never really on the radar, but through the process, it actually came through the different groups. It wasn't something that was top down. It was really from the grassroots up. And we have some pretty passionate parents at Lawson that are a part of that team, and the ones that have met consistently with DLR away from school officials and board members. And they're the ones that have really kind of spearheaded that idea. Going into it originally, it wasn't never anything that I've thought of, but as it's been presented and the maneuverability of some of the programs at Nettie up there, honestly, it makes good sense on the efficiencies of the district.
Sounds like it, yeah.
One other thing, that first option called for only grades 1 through 4 in the 3 other elementary schools. Is that still part of what you're looking at?
Yeah, because the 5th and 6th grade would have a new center at Warren. And so you would have a 5, 6, and it would be separated. They wouldn't be intermixed into. It would be actually separated by a breezeway, a walkway, the gym, the cafeteria, and that. So they would have some common spaces, but throughout the day, unless kids were needing the upper level math or upper level classes from that perspective, they wouldn't have classes that would go back and forth.
Yeah, my thing on that is that, I mean, I think you have very good facilities in USD 453, including those 3 other elementary schools. And to only have grades 1 through 4 in there, I don't know, to me, I don't know, it just gets away from the neighborhood school concept. So I'll shut up, but that's my opinion.
And I think that's great. I think that's a great point. But the thing that, and I'm gonna step on toes, and I've stepped on a lot of toes, is that education is changing. And so neighborhood schools and and the structure within those schools have to start changing. And they have to change because the society that kids are going out to has already changed, and the experiences that they have. And so what we do within those spaces, and if we can open up some of those spaces and not have as many classrooms, it gives more freedom to do some of the things that next generation learning is actually requiring for us to do. You know, lots of programs and lots of things have already changed and maneuvered to that direction. In education, we're afraid because this is what we've done since 1800s. We've lined up in rows and we've done this, and it's been a sit and get, and it's been that's how we all were educated. And so that's what we know. And so when we start talking change and we start talking different, then people sit back and say, whoa. That's not work for me. And that's the fear. The fear in education is just that. And I think that colleges have changed and are starting to change. And if we're truly preparing kids for the next generation, we can't be afraid.
I hadn't thought about opening up additional spaces in terms of the grades 1 through 4, but you might want to think about communicating that, because you communicate well, I think, with the community on this thing, but I hadn't heard that aspect of it. That was part of your thinking in terms of reducing.
And once
the number
things
of
get
grades.
more defined, and we actually, if the board gives us permission to move forward to where we can actually start sharing this before anybody goes to a poll or to a vote, there's a lot of community meetings in my future. I'm not a psychic, but I'm predicting it. And so that would be some of the message that would be delivered.
Thank you, Dr. Roth.
Real quick, Dr. Roth, you did mention possibility of the bond in June. I don't think, you need 90 days and next week is the 13th. By the
So-
time
so-
you're looking at July or August, aren't you?
If we counted right, if the board gives us permission on Thursday, we would call for, we have, our bond attorneys with,
The earliest would be like
June
June 13th.
15th.
Yeah, June 15th,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, just out of curiosity, how many snow days have you had, and what are your, how do you?
We've used, with students, we've had 2 days. Then with teachers, where we had a in-service day scheduled, was 1. So 3 total days, 2 with students.
Do you have to make up or not?
We do not.
You have
No,
something built
we
in the
do,
calendar,
yes.
so right now we're okay.
Right, and that includes our seniors, because that's where it gets tricky with seniors getting out a few days before everyone else. And so we have enough of a buffer to take care of them as well.
Quick question on federal impact funds. You know, for all the kids that come from the fort, I know that the school district has to make the application to get those federal impact funds. Do they come directly back to you, or they still go to the state?
They still go to the state, and we missed, we needed, for the February 2nd count, for the second count that happens in February, not on February 2nd, we needed 25 students, military students new to the district, since September 20th, and we only had 22. So that cost us about $125,000 of budgetary authority, so.
So on the federal impact funds, once again, you say we have in the district 387 kids for Fort
Right.
Leavenworth, whatever the number might be. And then
It goes into a formula.
and then they come back and
This goes
obviously
to the-
DC sends out, let's say $387,000, grabbing a number now. Those dollars don't come back to Leavenworth, they go to Topeka and are distributed throughout the entire school budget.
That's correct.
Correct. Now, on Fort Leavenworth, I was hearing differently that their federal impact funds come directly back to the district. And I don't believe that
I
to
don't
be
think
true.
so. And 70% of our impact aid on Fort Leavenworth goes to the state.
Yeah, no, that's,
So-
that's what I was wondering. We had a discussion, City Manager Kramer and I had a discussion with someone earlier this week, and, I think there may have been a misunderstanding, but, so nothing's really changed on the impact.
No.
But, okay, it's
That's
just-
too bad, 22.
Okay, any other questions,
Yes, I have
Dr. Rupp?
something. Back to the security, I know that a lot of teachers have been informed to start locking up their doors. Now, have you guys ever thought about in the future possibly placing security guards, not police officers, but security guards inside of the schools as well?
And so, like for us, and honestly, that's $1 million question. Where does safety and security tie in with academics and the functionality of the district, okay? And so safety is a key element. Kids won't learn if they don't feel safe. Teachers won't teach if they don't feel safe. So it's a very difficult answer to give, because if we add that, we have to subtract something else, unless we would get federal aid or something like that that actually covers that, because that would come out of the general fund. So if we add anything beyond what the budget already allows, then something else has to come out of the budget, whether it be a club, an athletic event, some support staff, something. When it's expended, something has to be contracted to be able to fund that. And so we, by adding, and I've talked with Mr. Kramer, which I know he's talked with Chief Kitchens, about the possibility of adding a resource officer back and then we spread our current security throughout our buildings a little differently. And so those are some things that we're contemplating and considering, because again, students won't learn if they're not safe, and teachers have a harder time teaching if they feel that they're not safe. And so it is $1 million question, but something that has to give to get. So that would be something that we would have to analyze and continually evaluate.
Just one more comment. You made 2 decisions that I'm aware of on the like in 2017 on the homecoming, having it downtown, correct? And then the other thing, letting seniors 65 and above get into the sports events for free?
That is correct.
Will that continue next school year?
Yes, it will. And
Okay.
actually, we're going into a new league, and to my knowledge, it was kind of adopted throughout that league as well.
I thank you as a citizen for making those decisions. I thought I was on the parade route last year and it went very, very well. And I like going to the games, as do a lot of other senior citizens. I saw a lot of them out there at the football games.
Yes.
And haven't been to as many basketball games, but thank you.
Absolutely. It was a board decision. I have to give credit to them.
Any other questions for Dr. Roth? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is Havens Park Bike Trails Review.
Steve Grant, our Parks and Recreation Director, will get this one kicked off.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. It's good to be here tonight. I always love to come talk about volunteers because in Parks and Rec we use a lot of them. Currently we have two very active groups of volunteers that are building trails for us. One of them you may have seen out on Facebook is being led by a gentleman named Stephen Bray. He's kind of, for about the last year or so, the trails haven't got too developed as of yet, but he's basically just up at VA Park. He's developing some foot trails as he can get volunteers. He's a member of the Leavenworth County Trails Committee. So we hope to, once that gets more developed, have him come and present to you at that time. Tonight, I have a very special gentleman with us, Mr. Chris Hendrickson. Chris is developing mountain biking and hiking trails at Havens Park. He came to the Parks and Recreation Department back in 2014, and since then he has founded a group called the Trail Mob, and with just countless unbelievable fantastic hours have been him and his group have been building these trails up in Havens Park. Chris is one of us. He's in his spare time he's a full-time firefighter for the city of Leavenworth. And it's pretty rare you go out there and you don't see his vehicle out there. If his vehicle's not out there, that means he's probably on shift. With that, I don't want to steal any more of his thunder. He's going to give a presentation as to the trails and where they're at as far as construction to date. I'll just add how grateful and fortunate we are to have Chris and his energy and fortitude to be building those trails out there. So with that, Mr. Chris Hendrickson.
Well, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start with the PowerPoint. So a little bit about myself. As you can see up there, I think I have actually the wrong slide up, but we'll shoot it from here. Yeah. So as you know, I'm a firefighter as well. I was also in the military. I originally grew up in Minnesota. Yeah, this is the wrong slides, but that's okay. Like you said, we are the Trail Mob. This is just a group of volunteers from around the community in the area. We had a bunch of different names, and then we had a bunch of people vote on which name they wanted, and the Trail Mob is the one that actually won. So we are just a bunch of group of citizens that actually volunteer and put our time out there. The main point is just to get more hiking, more walking, because when I first came to the city, someone told me about the park. I went out there, I didn't see anything being done with it, and I saw it was just a great location. It was a beautiful park that we could get more stuff involved, more people out there. In 2015, we had 4,000, as you can see, 445 volunteers. 2016, 334, and 2017, I think we ended up with close to 400 in year 2017. And so the overall total was somewhere around 1,000 in the last 3 years. Here's a few of our trash pickup days. A little bit of our work we've done out there.
Since you've started the trash pickup, have you found less trash? Are people not using it as a dumping ground, or are they still?
Yes and no. For the most part, I haven't seen as much trash as far as overall, but they usually trash it in like one spot. Like they'll pick a place to dump it. Usually off the 22nd Street or just around the tree, which is actually a dumpster, a can right there as well. So the idea of the trails is it's more of a natural to get more closer to nature, so you can look around. Mountain biking is a growing sport, and actually some states it's becoming part of the high school and school curriculum, something as a sport to do. Also, trail running is becoming a lot more popular as far versus like road running. It also gives you more of a access for the locals to just get closer in with nature, see what's about there. So last year we had the 5K run, 3 years on the run. So each year we're adding up. We're planning on doing it for every year. Bring people from out of town into the city as well. So we also had to dress up. You could either dress up as a mobster or a police officer. You also want to award that way.
Are you trying to raise funds or just awareness? Or, okay.
So all the money does go back into the trails or tools that we need to work on the trails as well. Here's some of the sponsors we had from last year. A lot of these sponsors are also doing it again, like the Complete Heat and Cooling, Done Right Plumbing, Jerry's Nursery, and Roger Harrison with his company. And some of the newer ones that we have going on from the city as well, like the Leavenworth Health Club, and Meriwether's, and the Leavenworth Yoga Company Co-op. They're also going to be sponsoring this year's, this year's run will be the 24th of March. So it's coming up. You guys are all.
What time does it start?
9 a.m. So you guys are all welcome to run it or volunteer, or if you guys even want to speak at it, we'd be more than happy to see you guys there.
Can it be walked?
Yeah, there is actually a 1 mile walk, and if you want to bring your dog, if you have a dog, bring your dog.
Okay, dogs are welcome.
And if you participate, there's also free tacos afterwards.
Good.
Let's go back. So we do have about 5 to 7 miles of natural trails. There's a 3-mile loop. A lot of mountain bikers and runners like to have a continuous loop. The 5 and 7 right now are just kind of all sporadic. We like to get a total of 5 to 7 mile loop together with a total of roughly about 10 miles. We try to use every space we can, but yet, because of the way the terrain is set up, we have to be very careful on how we design the trail without getting too much erosion. If that makes sense. And also, if you get too steep, people wipe out, and that's not good either. So, we also like to see in the future start doing like educational points, like little platforms to talk about different nature that's out there, like either flowers, plants, animals as well. And obviously, the more people we get out there, the less troublemakers we see out there as well. Ever since I started, when I first started getting out there, you'd see a lot of different cars, but now there's been a lot more flow of people, and I've seen a lot less troublemakers.
Sure. That's good.
Here's some examples of pump tracks. That'd be more for like the open areas. The idea of those behind those are designed for everyone. It's kind of like a building point, like a skill set for everyone to start off and then they go up. But we haven't even touched on any of that really. There's some different ideas to go on there with also at the Lions Club. Some before and after. So we do work out there year round.
That's nice.
Some more building projects we had. A few of the signs. So there is a sign right at the beginning asking you to make sure you wear a helmet. The right of way, be careful of the trails because they are natural trails. And mountain biking is inherently dangerous, so you are always at your own risk. And if you're afraid of snakes or spiders.
Add ticks to that too.
So here are a few of the wonderful things we've seen out there so far. I've also seen a turkey, a fox, a deer.
It's a big snake. Yeah.
A lot of deer up there.
Few other things we have out there. Here's one of the Boy Scout troops. They were out there building their own little section, a walking up path.
I wondered if the Boy Scouts were getting involved in there. They were talking about that before.
There's one group that's came out. There's someone else reached out to me, but they never returned. I think they found a different project they wanted to do.
That's great.
More signs, more workers. You guys have any comments or questions?
Well, we were just out, been going up there, and it just gets better and better. Just beautiful job. And last weekend, my fiance was walking our dogs over there, and he noticed there was some people from Kansas City came up, and they had heard about it. and they were riding, and they were real impressed. So they'll be back, and that's really exciting to see people from out of town come in and check it all out. So you must be doing some good PR to get people up here. That's good.
I'm glad you brought that up. There's a group called the Earth Riders. It's on the Facebook page, and there's roughly over 1,000 people on that page. Well, they started this new thing where it's called the EFI of Kansas City, and one of the guys that's organizer called me up and said, "Hey, what's going on Havens? What do you have?" And so our name actually got on the shirt for every single list of different trails in Kansas City. So we should be getting a lot more people out there because they want to check off that box. Sure. The trails.
That's cool. Our Convention and Visitors Bureau should be aware of that too and get involved in that as well, promoting that park. I love that. I love the park. I've loved it my whole life, so I'm excited.
What's the footprint of the park? How many acres?
64, I believe.
Okay.
I think, yeah, 60-something, I remember that.
I think it's 60.
10th of a mile.
It is a beautiful tract of land.
Yeah. Okay, any questions for Mr. Hendrickson or Mr. Graham?
Just how many volunteers do you have? I mean, just generally, I mean, maybe it's,
It really all depends. Sometimes we have up to 10, other times it's just me.
is there anything the commission can do to
Build a bathroom.
to help?
Yeah, that is true. People have come up to me and asked me, where's the closest bathroom?
Yeah.
I know a lot of men will just go in the woods, but as far as females, they don't really want to go in the woods.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing we.
Yes.
We need it, yeah, we need a bathroom.
Okay.
We talked about it before, and
Okay.
yeah, that's one thing
Glad
we
I
need
asked
to
the
do.
question.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, well, thank you very much for you and your volunteers and, seems like a great asset for the city.
It is definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Henderson.
And that's March 24th at 9 o'clock for your run,
Correct.
for everybody to know.
What station are you assigned to?
Station 1.
Okay. In case somebody wants to make contact with you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next item is review the sports field usage policy. I think you'll probably just stay up here, Mr. Graham.
Yes. And I'm calling in supports. I've got with me the president of the Park Community Activity Advisory Board, Mr. Jim Mathis, and also Mr. Tabor Medill, our Recreation Program Supervisor. So tonight we're reviewing the current management policies of the sports field complex. Just a little background of the complex. You'll recall in the fall of 2010, the old sports field was completely leveled and completely reconstructed with the facility we have out there now. It took quite a bit of earthwork, moving a lot of earth around, retaining walls, of course, 4 brand new fields, all the fencing, lighting, concession buildings, the whole 9 yards, to the tune of $2.3 million. We're very, very pleased with the way it turned out, and I think it's a great asset for our city. It opened up in the spring of 2011. Since then, the Parks and Recreation Department has managed the facility. The Park Maintenance Department manages the grounds, the fields, the surfaces. They go to several different training seminars specifically on ball field maintenance annually, ranging from all different types, whether it be mound and batter's box maintenance or the actual turf itself or irrigation. There's just a whole gamut that they go to several times a year for different things. So that is the maintenance side of it. And then as far as managing the administrative side of it, it goes through our Parks and Recreation offices, and more specifically our Recreation Program Supervisor, Tabor Medill. That's when we schedule recreation workers or some city staff to be on site when the complex is being used. So that started in 2011, and so over time, as we've gone on, we hold all of our rec programs, youth programs, all of our baseball and softball programs are on the site, as well as the school district uses it, and we have a shared facility agreement with the school district where they use the facility for our baseball and their baseball and softball programs, and we get to use their gymnasiums for our youth basketball program. So it's a very beneficial agreement we have with them. As far as and then we do charge for the facility. Now those charges, as I said, the school district does not pay because of the shared usage. Our charges are built in for our youth programs. It's built into the registration, so teams aren't individually charged. Outside of that, we do charge for use of the complex to help offset those maintenance and administrative costs that we have out there. Occasionally, we have groups come and ask to have these fees waived. Over the time, the popularity of the complex has increased dramatically, mainly due to the condition of the complex. It took a little while to get some groups in here to see what actual gym that we did have of a complex, but once we got them here, we started off slowly. The first summer, there's just 1 or 2 tournaments, and then 3 or 4, and now this year, currently for 2018, we have 7 tournaments already scheduled. Tournaments last anywhere from 2 to 4 days. Each individual tournament is on its own separate contract based on who the entity is and how they're going to use the complex, and then charges are accordingly. So our policies for charging for the use of the facility, we charge $25 an hour for practice time. So if somebody wants to come out there and practice, they're welcome to. We charge $25 an hour, obviously to help offset. We will staff it when that person's out there so that we have city staff on site, and then obviously the park maintenance doing maintenance on the fields afterwards. For games, we charge $50 a game. The reason we charge $50 per game is because you never know how long a game's going to go. So an hourly rate doesn't make a lot of sense. Some games are 2 hours, some games are 4 hours. So it was decided just a flat $50 per game when somebody rents the field. As I said tonight, Coach Jim Mathis is here. Jim is the president of Parks Community Activity Advisory Board. The board discussed the usage policy at the sports field at their February park board meeting, at which time they unanimously decided and agreed that the current policies are serving us well based on the condition of the complex and the response we're getting from that. And I'll let Jim expand upon that more. I think that pretty much covers it as far as from a management standpoint. Those are our basic charges. And so with that, I'd open it up with any questions or comments. Tabor's here to help me answer questions regarding the leagues and fees and stuff. I do know, as I said, there's been entities that have asked for either a reduction in rental costs or fees to be waived out there. I know Mr. Bruce Simpson is here tonight, and he had addressed the City Commission a few weeks back regarding this. I also believe there may be some members of the American Legion here that have had similar requests in the past, so I know they're here and probably available to answer any questions as well.
Go ahead.
One question, the Eagles, I saw that in your
Yes.
report. What is happening with the Eagles? I know that's for sale.
No, we bought it.
Oh, we
yes,
bought it.
Yes.
We're
It
building
is-
on it.
Yes.
It'll be ready in April.
The good news with that is that's going to help
Sorry,
alleviate.
I don't know where I was.
Baseball field going.
Totally missed that.
That's
Maybe
going to
I
help
was out of
alleviate.
town then.
That's going to help alleviate some of the practice requirements at Sports Field because
Okay, great.
we do
That's
have
great.
it. In fact, it's underway. I contacted we have a PO in place, and we will be reconstructing that infield and construction. They have it scheduled to start next week.
Great.
With the probable completion time on that estimated to be 2 weeks. That obviously will be a little bit weather related, but they do have it scheduled to start next week. That field will have a 90-foot or 60-foot 6-inch pitching plate and 90-foot bases to accommodate baseball. It's really we have eight neighborhood ball fields throughout the city, and that's really the only one that has enough space to accommodate baseball practice areas. We never had it in the past.
Good.
over the past several, 5, 6, 7 years, we've been going through some of our parks and renovating these infields, putting new infield mix in, having them professionally laser graded. It has helped out with our playability and practice tremendously. We started with Cody. We did the two at Hawthorne, and then you'll recall just in 2016 we were able to do the field at the south side. So basically, we have 3 remaining: Eagles, Jefferson, and Doherty. Okay. And out of priority sake, we moved Eagles to the top, and it's going to start real quick. So that'll help out tremendously. It'll give baseball teams a place to practice, which is open
And
to
it's
public.
gratis. They can just reserve it and first come, first served.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Question for you and Parks and Rec Board. I know that you met a couple weeks ago, and was it this recommendation of Parks and Rec Board not to waive fees, keep the same fee structure in place for sports field as we've had since we did that for the last 7 years now?
We brought it up this year, and we had a lengthy discussion with I think we had about 8 board members there. And this is something this is nothing new. Since 2011, when it was started, we had a lot of talk about how much are we going to charge. You people that were on the commission back then, you remember we went into whether we're going to charge or not charge. And we've come up with a policy, and we're trying to be fair to everybody. If we let somebody in to let them use it for no charge, well, pretty soon everybody's going to want that.
So the Parks and Rec Board advice or recommendation is leave the fees as is, no changes recommended.
Correct.
Okay.
The fees for sports field.
For sports field, yeah, the rest of them
Just
are,
for
or
the rest
no
are
fees,
free.
except for, if you have a softball team, you pay the Parks and Rec Department, whatever the fee is for the softball team.
But based on the mayor's comments, if Mr. Simpson wants to schedule his team to practice there at the new Eagles baseball field, will he be able to do that?
The way our practice fields work is they're like any one of our parks. They're open to the public.
Okay.
If you want to reserve something, then there is a fee associated with it. I would equate it to like a picnic shelter. Anybody can go have lunch at any one of our picnic shelters throughout our parks at any time they want. But if they want to reserve that spot and where they want to have a birthday party or whatever, then we charge whatever we charge.
$25.
Right. Same with the fields. If there's nothing scheduled there, if there's no practice scheduled there, free of charge, open to the public. I've had several good conversations with Mr. Simpson and said, call down to our offices. We'll tell you when practices are scheduled and when there's nothing out there. Yeah, and you and everybody else is welcome to go out there, just like, as long as it's within the park hours. Got to be off by 10, I believe, 10 o'clock.
So the youth recreation teams, the baseball and like the softball teams, do they play all their games at the sports field?
They do.
But they practice at other fields around the city?
Correct.
Okay.
They practice at all the neighborhood parks, and of course, we don't charge for their practices because that's part of the program. And then all of the games are at the sports field complex.
And you have more tournaments coming in this year?
We do. We have a Midwest Sports Production is signed up for 5 tournaments. Their first one is Mother's Day weekend, and then they have 4 more this summer. And we have the American Legion State Final Tournament coming in the middle of July. And the 7th one, the week right before that, it's a tournament called the
Select.
Say again?
Prospect Select.
I thought it was the Kansas City Classic. It's going through the CBB. The KCK CBB actually contacted Christy Lee, our CBB manager, and asked if we had a field for baseball, and so that's coming also in July.
Great.
Is the American Legion part of Parks and Recs?
No, sir.
Not at all. Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, this is the only thing that I suggest. I can't speak for the whole commission, but I feel as if since we have an American Legion team that's actually traveling and representing Leavenworth, and whenever they get the opportunity to do home games here at the sports complex on 20th Street, if they can't afford it, do you think they'll be able to come with a mutual agreement? Would you guys be willing to make an exception to do a mutual agreement? In return, they offer some type of community service to help assist with the parks and recs, to help pick up trash?
That would have to be a commission decision. These guys are not authorized to waive fees.
No.
You are.
Right.
So even any kind of agreement for service or anything like that would have to be done by the commission to waive those fees.
And that's what I'm saying, because if they can't afford it, and if they're coming to, if they're playing home games here and they're traveling, they're gonna be attracting different people from outside of cities to come into Leavenworth. And this is also, you know, providing services for the businesses in our town as well. And like I said, I can't speak for everybody, but that's just an idea.
I understand what you're saying. This team that Mr. Simpson has plays doubleheaders, so the cost will be $100, is that correct?
Correct.
And I know that I will opt for, I've already said that I'll pay for one of the games. He's talking, I think, 6 or 8 home games.
He did bring me a schedule, and they're looking at 5 dates. So
Okay,
it's
5
a
dates,
total of 10
$500.
games. Right.
If, I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Wilson. If our charge was exorbitant, not exorbitant, but, you know, pricey, $500, $1,000, something like that, I would say, yes, let's look at alternatives. But I don't consider this price to be exorbitant at all. I think it's well within the realm of reality that they can get sponsors or do what they ever need to do. Because if we do some other things, okay, we have this and we're gonna task staff to say how many hours did they pick up trash along 3 Mile Creek and things like that. I don't consider this $50 game, $100 for a doubleheader for a traveling team to be a showstopper for anyone. I think they might have to get creative and get some sponsors, but I think that they can do that. You know, I'm taking care of 20% of it right now, so and possibly other people will step up too. But I do not want to change the fee schedule that we have for sports field. We've had it in place for 7 years. We need to keep that park pristine. It's gotten better every year, and you know, it is paying its dividends, and want it to be used as it was intended to be used. We make one exception, we will make many exceptions, and then, but I understand what you're saying, but I don't think the amount that we're charging is detrimental to the program at all, my thoughts. Richard?
Well, and we have our advisory board that has studied it. I mean,
Yeah.
all the people on the advisory board that are very much more familiar with it, and I would go along with their recommendation.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
In preparation for this meeting, I reread the articles from the Leavenworth Times, last August, where they talked about access and utilization.
Right.
The other thing they talked about was participation. So I'm moving from access and utilization to participation. How are we doing, because you had some good comments, and you'd like to see the participation be as high as it possibly can be. So what have we seen over the last 5 years? Is it trending up, you know, in terms of the participation? Is there any way for us to know that? I mean,
As far as the number, the
yeah,
amount of
number of
usage at the-
youth that are participating in the recreation leagues.
As far as the youth numbers, I would have to turn that to Mr. Medill. As far as the utilization of the complex, that hasn't increased.
Yeah, and like I said, I've moved on from that,
Oh,
and
okay,
I was just, because there were two like themes there, and the other one was participation, so that's my question. I'm just interested in like you, having as many of the youth participate as possible, so
Sure.
are we seeing like numbers going up, or has it been kind of steady, or, you know?
Basically, what we're seeing is there's a group of competitive teams,
Right. That's what-
and they go out of town.
Right, I got that.
And so for every team that goes out, that's 15 kids that are not in our program, okay? The number of teams have pretty much been pretty steady from the age of 7 to the age of 13.
Okay.
Because after the age of 13, at the age of 14, that's when they go to the American Legion. The number of teams are not fluctuating, but the numbers on the teams are fluctuating from 12 to 15 kids per team. The usage of the field, with the exception of all the new tournaments that are coming in, our recreational use of the fields have remained the same in the 6 years that I've been here. And Mr. Grant has numbers of games played on a field. And the interesting thing, I think, is because of the increase of tournaments, the most used field that we have is Diamond number 1, and it gets the most usage. because of the, on a weekend, we'll have 16 games out there on that one field. So, so our numbers, as a whole in the city of Leavenworth, the numbers are remaining the same. Our numbers fluctuate because of the number of traveling teams. So sometimes you got a traveling team in an age group, sometimes you don't.
So, do we think there's a fairly significant portion of our youth that's just not playing in the rec leagues? Or, I mean, I guess the only way we would know that would be, I don't know if you can get any data from the school district, but I'm just, I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to have the opportunity there. And I know the opportunity's there, but that, we get as many participants from those grade 7 through 13 as we can in the youth recreation leagues.
If I can interject, Marcella Williams, our secretary, she, when we have a season starting, she will email the flyer to all the previous participants in both basketball and baseball, softball. Okay. And then the other thing is, I deliver to all the Pleasant Ridge schools, which I say all. There's a middle school and a elementary school.
Say all, that sounds good.
So all of them. And I deliver to the parochial schools, and I deliver to all of the Leavenworth elementary and middle school flyers for each individual child, and they have a backpack day. And so I take them on Wednesday so that they go out on Thursday. And when I sent them out the first week, the first day that registration was open, I forgot, it's past the deadline, I put it in my stack and I forgot it. So if I did it the last week, well, you didn't give us enough time. So I kind of go like the 3 weeks out, 2.5 weeks out, kind of in the middle. So we do that as well.
Do we think that, and without getting into all the specifics, do we think the fee structure is like fair and reasonable for,
Compared
most
to local
families?
communities, we're right on par with communities such as Lansing. If you go down and play in similar leagues down in Johnson County, we're probably half as much what you pay to play.
That's good to know.
I think another thing to add to just the general numbers, you see general numbers dropping across the board, and it's not specific just to baseball, it's specific to all sports. And it's because of the specialization. There's a lot of specialization where you have people just going baseball, or just going volleyball, or just going soccer, and they play it year round now. It's not like when we grew up, I grew up, we played
all the sports.
Yeah, you played football in the fall and baseball in the summer, or basketball in the winter, but nowadays, if you want to be a volleyball player, you play year round, and just same with soccer. And we started a program down at the community center, and last winter a new futsal program, because I know futsal is gaining ground. My daughter played it, and I'm like, what's that? So I'm like, well, it's gaining ground. These people are playing soccer at a very high level, and they want to play year round. We don't have an indoor soccer facility, and we started our first year. We had 40 or 20 something, almost 30 participants, and it went up again this winter. So there's a lot of specialization these days in sports, and
not all good, I don't think.
No, and as a Parks and Recreation Department, we strive to be all inclusive, and we want everybody to play. And when there's traveling teams, they know they're not going to have the competition that's going to help to keep them excelling.
What about coaches? Tough to get good coach. I mean, because I think if you can have quality coaches, you're going to have a quality program. Even at the rec.
Do you recruit from the Ford as well?
We cannot advertise up on post.
I know, but there's other ways. I didn't know if you went through MWR or anything to.
They're the ones that won't let us come up there.
Yeah, they have their own programs.
But is there an age?
Right.
Is there an age limit or an age as far as the coaches? They have to be like 18, 21, or
I prefer that
What
they're
about
adults.
well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Let's not knock ourselves out.
Well, that's true. I didn't
One
think
of
about it.
and
in terms of
actually,
basketball.
that's one of the things that I'm trying to do is get people who don't have a vested interest, because they tend to stay longer. Whereas if I've got my child, then what am I going to do? I'm going to follow my child. So I'm trying to get more people, as actually the mayor
The
said.
mayor brings up a good point, because I actually, when I read the read-ahead, I was thinking, you know, I've got somewhat of a sports background a long time ago, but either baseball or basketball,
Right.
but, I don't know, maybe you get the word out on Facebook or something like that about those opportunities.
As far as access to it, I want to remind us that we do have the scholarship program.
Okay.
Which, if a person qualifies for a scholarship, program only costs them $5.
Well, okay,
So,
okay.
that opens it up to a lot of people who in normal days would not be able to be involved.
And it's heavily used. We
Oh,
give
good.
out tens of thousands of dollars every year on
That's good to know.
scholarships. Absolutely.
Mr. Mathis?
Well, okay, just a couple quick comments back to that. We have this big Havens, what's now haunted, depot. And that's, the money we make from that goes toward that scholarship fund. And one other thing I'd just like to add, judging from the school district, we have less kids than we did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. There's not as many kids.
Okay.
And things like soccer is really taken, more kids are going that way, or a lot of them, so. And 20, 30 years ago, there was no soccer program.
Right.
Mr. Simpson, would you like to speak?
Yes, I'd like to make.
Come up, please come up here, up to the podium to.
I appreciate it, thank you. Couple points I'd like to make is that I've gotten, firm commitment from 12 boys that want to play ball. And, these are boys that are part of the success story that we had in the youth league. And these 12 boys have exceeded the limitations of what the city can provide for them. These are kids that are still in Warren School, still in 8th grade, that are competitive, that have meet the standards of higher playing ball and want to play ball. And these are also kids who play multiple sports. These aren't kids who are just specializing in one sport. And if you take a look at all the specialized sports, the experts are coming back and telling you that the kids need to play multiple sports because one sport is not good for the body. Okay, then the body doesn't have a chance to rest. And these kids play football, and they play basketball, and they want to play baseball. That's all they want to do is play baseball. Now, I'm not asking for a free lunch. Okay, we got 10 home games or 10 doubleheaders. The schedule's here. That's 10 games total, 10 games outside the city. I'm willing to pay. I'll take it out of my own pocket. These boys, that's what it takes for these boys to play ball. I know in the past there's been a reduction in the past. We'll take a reduction, okay?
What'd you say, there was a what?
There's been a reduction in the fees, okay? And that's,
With sports field?
I'm not commenting on what sports field or who was involved in it, but I just know there's been a reduction in fees. Okay.
I don't, I could be wrong, I'm not involved in the day-to-day accounting of Parks and Rec, but I've been on the commission since we redid sports field in 2011, 2012. Since then, I know of none. I could be wrong, but it may have been before, or I don't know.
I don't know. That's what I've been told.
Okay,
And-
well, I've been told, and I've kind of
Okay.
researched it the opposite, so
That's cool.
maybe we'll agree or
That's cool.
disagree on that one.
That's cool. But, you know, I just want to give these boys a chance to play ball. That's all there is to it.
And we do not deny it, and we encourage it.
Well, okay, let me tell you something else that that you all may not be aware of, is that even though we want to be an American Legion team, there is not a Legion post in this town that sponsors a baseball team. It's all through private donations and et cetera. So we don't have any, we'll have to go out and hustle for sponsors, okay?
Right.
We may have to do that, I don't know, but we're gonna have 10 games here in Leavenworth, and that's probably more games than any single team is gonna be playing here in Leavenworth, except for the senior league, and we're playing about, I think, 10 or 12 home games too. Okay, so there's gonna be a lot of activity on that field, and the reason why this is such an important time age for this group is because when they leave the youth league, not every parent can afford to have their kid play on a traveling team, okay? And not every parent wants their kid to be on a traveling team. So we're filling that void, giving those kids the opportunity to play ball. And that's all we want to do is play baseball. Thank you.
We welcome you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. So is it a consensus of the commission that we maintain the fee structure at sports field as as it has been, as it is.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we said three of us said that's consensus that we're, keep the fee structure as is. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Next item is, adding new programming to Channel 2.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, at last week's commission meeting, Commissioner Dedeke indicated that he had spoken with Councilman in Lansing about doing some reciprocal video sharing of municipal meetings. I reached out to the Leavenworth, or the Lansing City Administrator. They're fine with it. There are no legal issues. We do have some precedent for this type of action. We televise the Leavenworth County Board of County Commission meetings and the Leavenworth School District meetings. We do a lot of video sharing with Lansing as far as stuff like legislative updates, parades. Lansing tapes all the chambers' legislative updates, and then we air them. I talked to Mr. Vandal. They have 2 meetings a month, and on average they last about 45 minutes, so that would be the time commitment that would be on air. You know, occasionally they could go longer, but that's what he indicated is about average. We would in turn provide video footage of our regular meetings for air on Lansing's channel, which they are happy to do. I did include the schedule. You'd think that it'd be wide open, but you know, we try to keep all the meetings within sort of that 12-hour window of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. And we currently do the school board, county commission, city commission. Then we'd like to have a block for planning commission meetings, preservation commission, board of zoning appeals. But in talking with our public information officer and our assistant city manager, we think we could accommodate Lansing's meetings easily within our schedule without bumping anything. And then I just, in talking with Administrator Vandal, we talked about some of the reasons why, and we share Eisenhower Road issues. The work they're doing right now on Eisenhower Road is important for our residents to know. We have mutual aid for law enforcement, development planning between the two. We do share some school district boundaries, so in any issues that would come up there. We're also both members of the Chamber of Commerce, LCDC, and the Port Authority, so discussions by the governing bodies on those issues could be of interest to public. Again, we have a good relationship with Lansing. There are no technical hurdles to this. It would just be up to the commission whether they wanted to give consensus to go ahead and start airing those meetings.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Do we only show up on Time Warner Cable, is that correct?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, if you don't have Spectrum, you can't see it. Am I correct in that, or can you get it?
See it on Spectrum.
Yeah, that's
No,
what you
if
have
you don't have it.
Oh, if you don't.
If you don't have Spectrum.
If you don't have it, can you
Yeah,
get through your
like if
Roku,
you got
right? You know, there's
Direct
all
TV
ways
or
that you
anything
can.
else, you can't do it.
Only on
Only
Spectrum,
on
okay,
Spectrum.
yeah.
I mean,
Only
I'm
you can
sorry,
get Channel
Spectrum
2
is
on
Time
Spectrum.
Warner Cable,
Yeah,
same
Time
thing.
Warner's
Yeah, same
cable,
thing.
whatever it's called.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's
see,
just-
Lansing has a channel too, but they don't, it's different than our channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fort's is different than ours too.
They don't? Oh, that's interesting.
Would our meeting still be broadcast at 7 p.m. and?
Yeah, we would make
we
no
like-
changes to
yeah.
our meetings.
Keeping
We'd still
ours the
show them
same.
live and on.
That'd be good. I think it's a great idea.
Consensus to allow the city manager and the PIO, assistant city manager to work this out and go with it?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. Please go forward. I don't think there's anything we need to vote on at
Nope.
the regular meeting. You
No, it will not come back before you.
Okay, now, comments among commissioners.
Pardon?
Any comments?
Oh,
among-
no, thank you.
Mr. Dedeke, Mr. Griswold?
Yes, I actually have
Wilson,
two.
go ahead.
I know that we actually have the spring cleanup coming up real soon. I want to know, I had spoke with you briefly about it, Mr. Paul. Seeing if we can actually do a meet and greet afterwards. I didn't know if you reached out to Melissa about it.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I talked to and Steve Grant's here, we talked about a community picnic. I think that was sort of the idea. It's a good idea. We were thinking that, of centering it around the sort of ribbon cutting and celebration of the new playground equipment at Cody Park, and celebrating the park and having a cookout there and inviting people and inviting children to play on that type of equipment. The spring cleanup requires a lot of the public works workers to be running extra trash routes and be manning the service station. and staff is out doing stuff that day, so it would have been a little bit tough to pull together this year. But we were thinking about when Cody Park opens this fall to do a community cookout, meet and greet, community event. And I hadn't formalized that with Steve, but, that was, what we had talked about. So as we get a little bit closer to that, we can, make sure we get that word out, if the commission wants to do something like that.
Well, and the spring cleanup is not just that one day, it's the whole week.
It really is.
You have a lot of
yeah,
other
mostly
things
that
going
one
on
day.
too.
And we do have, for about an hour before the event, there is.
Yeah, we
the
come
donut
together.
donuts
gathering
and orange
in the gym,
juice,
The
yeah.
donuts, coffee, juice, and things like that, where people mix and mingle, and official kickoffs at 8:30 or 9 or something like that, but people start showing up about 7:30.
Yeah.
And some teams take off, they'll stay there for, the official ribbon, or whistle blowing to go, they take off and do their.
That'll be in the fall though, on the,
Yeah.
The Cody Park project.
it'll be in the fall with the new, I think you had mentioned that to Mr. Wilson and I when we went on our tour, right?
Yeah,
Just new equipment for the playground or?
Correct, and as popular as the equipment there at Cody, the last thing we wanted to do was have it under construction during spring, specifically spring break.
Sure.
And then during the summer. So we've made a couple of repairs that weren't too expensive that needed to happen to it to get it to this fall. So we look for it to go out to bid probably in August and start construction after kids go back to school. That's
Okay.
kind of the time.
That's great.
And then open it with a community event.
Yes,
Right.
that'd be good.
Yeah, and we can have
Steve,
That'd
I've
be
got
nice and
a
sir.
little quick one for you, it's off subject.
Sir.
The restroom, when it was vandalized, has that been repaired and it's all open?
Yes, they were working on it last week. It was supposed to be done Friday, and I think it is. I think it's open and back open. Yes, the one at Cody. Yes. Yeah, and all of our restrooms we open all of our restrooms that have heat on March 1st. So any that aren't open right now are ones that don't have heat in them.
Right.
And we wait till the freezing temperatures go away for the season, so.
Okay.
Commissioner Wilson, you had some more?
Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead.
Also, then we get some nets on Bob Doherty Park.
Yes.
Man, springtime.
Yeah. March Madness time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you put nets or chains?
Nets.
Do you?
Yeah.
Hey, we talked,
Yeah, they went away from chains years ago.
Because people get their fingers caught in there.
Correct.
we grew up with chains, right, Mark?
They last.
I did too, yeah. They last a lot longer.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's good to have
dangerous too.
And the last thing, I know that the city is on a tight budget, and I know that we have some future road projects taking place in the future. But I was just curious about potholes. I know that we have a major issue with potholes. I want to know.
They're pretty
is
bad
this-
right now.
I'll say something about that. I'll let city manager and,
What can we do?
Our problem with potholes is not unlike Kansas City, Lawrence, Lansing, any city in America that has a freeze thaw. And what the city does do, they are going around with, hot asphalt, and they do fill them from time to time, but, our problem is no better, no worse than the rest of mid-America, but go ahead.
And I'll tell you the same thing, call the service center with specific locations. They do stretches of roads, like on 10th Street from time to time, but a lot of it is call and response, about where they are. So, the service center, I mean, you can just shoot me an email on
But the
specific
citizens
locations.
can do that too?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. A lot of people think, I
Yep.
know people that's their job. Go out and make
Yeah,
calls.
report a pothole. We run that banner on
Yeah,
Channel 2 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Call the service center, and it's not really a funding issue. We have plenty of asphalt patching materials. What you do run into sometimes is you have to do what are called cold patches, because the asphalt plants don't produce asphalt when it's cold outside. So we can do what's called a cold patch, and then you usually have to go back once the asphalt plants fire up for the year and get actual hot asphalt to do a more permanent repair.
Okay.
But this time of year, for the next month or so, they're really
Watch
gonna
that
show up
dry.
because the freeze thaw cycle.
Well, they had
That's
trucks
all.
out today doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all they're doing this time of year.
yeah.
That's
All
good.
day.
Okay. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
Yep.
Anything else?
That's it.
Commissioner Griswold?
No, I think this last policy issue that we dealt with in terms of the Channel 2 schedule is really good. I mean, it falls into what I consider strategic communication. And all I would ask is that we consider sometime, and it wouldn't take a long time, maybe 10, 15 minutes, for us to have a study session on strategic communication, because there are other ways for us as a commission to reach out. And I have some ideas. I know my fellow commissioners
Sounds good.
have ideas. I could write a one-page memo just to talk about some ways we could get our message and messages out maybe a little bit more effectively and more broadly. And so sometime in the future,
I think it'd be
I'll look into
a
that.
good discussion
idea.
topic during our goal-setting session in, what is it, April?
Next month.
What the date is?
That
The
work?
4th, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
Good part of that, yeah.
That'd be fine.
I didn't represent the city necessarily, but I did the Read Across America last Friday at Henry Leavenworth School, a bunch of 4th graders. Very interesting, a lot of fun, so, had 3 4th grade classes, I think there's 4, so, but, had 3 of them, so that was interesting. Mr. Kramer, do you have anything?
Just one other thing, on the homecoming parade that it's downtown again, the commission took some action a while back about not closing downtown streets outside of St. Patrick's Day Parade and Veterans Day Parade unless it came back to the commission because of the concern about closing for business owners. It's a very sensitive subject. If the commission wants to look at making that same exception for the Leavenworth Homecoming Parade as a third item that wouldn't have to come back, because right now we will have to bring this back to a regular meeting to get a commission vote on closing the downtown streets for the homecoming parade. So if we want to do that, we can. If we want to just keep approving it on a year-to-year basis, we can do that too.
Could you bring it back to us, you and the chief, kind of tell us the pros and cons and tell us what you recommend on how to handle?
Sure.
Because I know it's not just as easy as saying,
Year
shut
day,
it down. Did they cross 4th Street?
Yes.
They do, they go all the way down the community center. Yeah. I know 4th Street's problematic in the state highway.
That's the worst, yeah.
It's a pretty
Okay.
short one, but yeah.
It's a short parade.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
20-minute
Close it
parade.
down with manpower if
Yeah.
you had to,
Yeah.
rather than barricades.
Yeah.
But what we've done on the other parades, like Delaware becomes no parking, doesn't, I mean, there's no cars on Delaware.
Yeah, the chief has to coordinate a pretty elaborate
Yeah,
road
there's
blocking
a-
scheme, which, they're pros at now, but they
But
do have
those
to
two,
do some
the
stuff like
Veterans Day,
that.
St. Patrick's Day are very big parades. This one is a
Right.
quick hitter.
And by the way, I think you're riding with the police chief during the St. Patrick's
Right.
parade.
Yeah.
And
I'm
Veterans
driving
Day.
the other car for the Felton
Yeah.
parade.
Thank you, appreciate that. And yeah, that's one thing I didn't say about the St. Patrick's Day Parade's coming up on
Week from
Saturday, March 17th, and we expect a record number of entries this year, because it is on a Saturday.
Cool.
And so hope everybody comes down and
And
check,
it's gonna be
wear the
warm,
green.
right?
And it's gonna be warm, hopefully, yeah. Wear the green.
Okay, anything else? If not, we're adjourned.
I don't know how I forgot about Eagles. I must have.